Everybody, I'm sorry you're not able to see my face, but hopefully a voice will do. So welcome to today's webinar on building engaging Qualtrics dashboards that drive change. As Antonia mentioned, I'm Louisa. I'm one of the portfolio success managers here in Sydney, and I'll kick things off for us. So this webinar will be led by ActXM, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with Antonia and the team at ActXM, but for those of you who haven't met them, they are an official Qualtrics partner, which means that they are certified and very experienced in delivering services for our customers, from implementation of Qualtrics through to ongoing services. And Antonia herself actually started out at Qualtrics, so the roots run very deep there. And I guess as portfolio managers and partners, we have a front row seat to the ongoing needs of our customers. And while lots of people think that Qualtrics is just a survey tool, it is much more than that. And an important next step is to get insights that you might obtain from your surveys into the hands of the right people, whether that's your execs or your frontline. And a very effective way to do this is via the Qualtrics dashboard. And I like to think of Qualtrics dashboards as living, breathing organisms. They are not something that you set and forget, but the needs of stakeholders, businesses, organizations change. So that's why your Qualtrics dashboards should be changing as well. So today, the team will take us through the thinking behind a dashboard. So what is its purpose? How do you define your audience, your KPIs? And then we'll jump into the platform and talk about the technical nitty-gritty. So page structures, widgets, statistical and text analyses, as well as looking at look and feel. So this is a live session. Please feel free to use the chat function to ask your questions, or we have time at the end for you to ask questions. But that's enough for me. Let's head on to the exciting stuff with ActXM.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for the introduction and your kind words. So I'll get started. Apologies, I got a bit of a cold going on. So hopefully I will be able to carry on for the next 5-10 minutes. Fortunately, I won't be doing all the speaking. Daniel will take most of the time to showcase how we develop dashboards within Qualtrics platform. But yeah, so as a way of starting, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to start this ActXM webinar series in collaboration with the Qualtrics team. As Louisa mentioned, like if you can keep all your questions and add them to the Q&A chat, it will be great. We'll spend time later in the session to answer those questions. And if you don't have time to go through all of them, we'll collect those questions and provide you all with a written answer over the next few days. So we are starting this webinar series by sharing, as mentioned by Louisa, and as you all know, by signing up to this webinar, we want to share with you the best practice and principles of how to build and engage in Qualtrics dashboards that drive change. And this driving change is important because we don't want just dashboards that sit there without being used and utilized by the organization. And this driving change and creating dashboards, it really needs to start by you defining and designing these dashboards for a specific audience or audience. Most likely, you have multiple people in the organization with various roles that will be accessing the dashboards, but design the dashboards with the audiences in mind. It should also have a purpose, and the purpose should be aligned with the audience and the end users. And we'll share with you some examples of how that purpose may change from user to user. And ultimately, it needs to be able for your users to quickly identify key takeaways and insights, which effectively will translate into actions that they can implement within the organization. Creating a dashboard that tells the story is more than just displaying, some visually appealing data and charts. As I mentioned, starting planning the audience for the dashboard is the key element, along with identifying that purpose. An example will be, for example, the executive teams, the most interested in the key metrics, performance, the ability to compare metrics across regions or products or stages of the customer journey. But if you're looking at developing a dashboard or a dashboard page for a contact center team leader, they will be mainly interested on how their team is performing, who the team is above or below company or team benchmarks, And what is driving that core metric that the contact center team leader has as part of their KPIs? Do they need to focus on developing team knowledge about the product and the service, focus on resolution of the issues, professionalism of the staff, whatever that might be, designing these dashboard pages with the end user and their purpose, the way they're using the dashboard in mind, it's critical to make it appealing to them and actionable to the end users. And then, as I mentioned, finally, you do want to provide those key takeaways. So we'll talk a little bit about simplicity of the dashboards. It will definitely make it easier for the users to grasp and get what are the key takeaways and the insights that they need to take. We really define, so with this in mind, in terms of delivering actionable dashboards, we define three key principles that we're going to talk you through today, and Daniel's going to showcase these on the platform. And these are user-tailored design, once again, easy of use, very important. And then finally, which is an obvious one, but we do want to create dashboards that include recommendations for actions. So as we referred to just now, to inspire action, a dashboard should be designed with the end user in mind. So it should include data points and feature visuals that are relevant to the user's end goals. We typically define three levels of dashboard users. You have your executives, you have central teams. Within the central teams can be a lot of different parts of the organization, but it can be, for example, this CX Insights team as one of the central teams, could be your call center managers, the digital team, product development. So it can be quite varied, but the way you present the data to a central team is different than the way you presented the data to an executive. Central team, you tend to go much deeper into the areas and the customer journey stages and channels that are relevant to these teams. And then the last level is the frontline team. So if you are working in an organization that has employees facing the customer, and that could be through a store, people's at specific stores or contact center or call center, or even in regionals, and this frontline staff is accessing the dashboards, they will want to understand how their individual performance, what areas they can do to improve their performance, so and therefore improve that customer experience. We talk already about the purpose, and this obviously goes along with the user-tailored design. So each user group will have different purpose when accessing the dashboards. I mentioned before, executive most likely wants to track overall performance, identify which business areas needs his or her attention. Is it by a specific region or product line? But when you're talking, for example, around the central team, I'll give you the example of digital experience teams. They're most likely going to be monitoring and wanting to look at how they can improve the digital channels within the organization. Or if we want to be a bit more specific, they probably want to understand what features do they need to develop that will have the biggest impact on customer satisfaction. But sometimes in the case of the digital team, just as an example, it may not necessarily be obvious digital team only access data related to digital channels. If their business goal is to improve self-serve, for example, within the website, and as a result, reduce the number of interactions customers have with contact center, for example, will be interesting to present to the digital team some information around related to contact center and reasons to reach out to the contact center. So what I want to say with this is having really a thinking about the users, the audience, and what are their business goals and how they intend to leverage the Qualtrics dashboards to address those challenges and those goals. Ultimately, the data and information that you are presenting needs to align with the audience challenge and goals. And to do this, to deliver insights that fit for this audience and their challenge, you need to be able to identify what are the key drivers, what outcome metrics, what operational data is more important and most relevant each one of these user audience and roles. All of this we consider that sometimes I joke with my team that this is all very obvious, but sometimes we forget to do the basics. So it's really important to go to the starting point of identifying users, audience, purpose, and what are the key relevant metrics for these users and audience. The second I guess the second point that we want to make in terms of creating actionable dashboards, our second recommendation, relates to making the dashboards easy to use. Don't overcomplicate it. And you make these dashboards easy to use by designing it with a specific goal in mind. So which again should be aligned with the end users. If we think about our overall arching goal of creating actionable dashboards, by making the dashboards specific and addressing the needs of the specific users, you are also going to make these more actionable. So they are more target, more focused. When we include too much information, it's hard to gain insight and generate solutions. And so with this, we also recommend that you minimize the clutter. So keep the clutter down. Too many data points and visuals can make it difficult to find metrics that matter to your end users. A good way to keep the clutter down is leveraging filters and metric comparisons. So you're also giving your users a little bit of flexibility in terms of slicing and dicing the data to their needs without adding too much into dashboards. Something that we really like to do here at ActXM and we think works really well with the customers that we have engaged with in terms of make it easy, make easy to navigate and actually have it as a reference point for the users is creating what we call the navigation page. So Daniel will share an example with you and some of the content that we typically add to this navigation page. But we're talking about, information around your program, what are the key metrics, how do you explain the key metrics to your stakeholders, include helpful resources and links on that navigation page. But it could also be things, for example, how to use filters, how to download the data. This helps with the navigation and make it a little bit more appealing for users to log in and understand what they need to do. The next one is making sure that you use the right charts to display that. You have lots of different options, and Daniel is going to showcase some that we like to use more often. But I think this is important to think about. Don't use a pie charts to display a like card type of scale, or making use of a traffic light scheme when it comes to developing the dashboard, that it makes it easier to understand what is performing well and not so well. So Daniel will take you through some of those options today. We do think that if you have a good understanding of what is the user's reporting time frame and KPIs and how the KPIs play, can also assist you with the designing of the dashboard and make it easy for you, easy of use. And by that I mean, for example, if you know your executive team, for most part, log in or need to report and visualize the data on a monthly basis, but they have a financial year KPI for their CSAT or NPS, you will want to display a monthly trend chart, for example, but have also that KPI for the time frame that is important and they are targets on. And then finally, identifying what is the primary channel that users will access dashboard. Most people will access dashboards via desktop, especially frontline staff. It may be easier for them or more relevant, more practical to access it via mobile or the app. So if that is the case, if you have people accessing dashboards using mobile or app, you want to custom design those pages for those users because the experience is very different and you definitely want to have it focus on the key areas, on the key metrics that are relevant to them when they're accessing the dashboard at that given time. Our final principle relates to including recommendations for action. Again, this is an obvious one, but what we do really mean is that the dashboard must help the users understand what they need to do next. And the first step is to have the dashboard content aligned with the business challenge goals, as we discussed before. We also recommend that you add context into to the dashboards, provide that context in the form of benchmarks, an understanding of what information, what are the implications of the information, assisting them understanding some of the statistics that you are using and the data definitions will help create a sense of understanding of the data and be able to, as a result of that, drive actions from the data. There's a lot of charts in Qualtrics platform that help make sense of the data and actually point you to actionable insights. So again, that Daniel will be sharing some of those examples with you, but we're talking about features like recommended actions, driver IQ widgets, relative importance, will help users understand what they should prioritize when it comes to improving the key metrics, key KPIs. And finally, we'll say make use of the functionality that is available around setting up metric notifications, reminders. There's a lot of new functionality that came in recently around metric notifications, thresholds, and reminders, and also leveraging sending out email dashboards on a recurrent basis. This keeps reminding people to log in and visualize the data, and as a result, keep your dashboard a little bit more useful and top of mind to your users. So this is what I have to share with you today. We're going to now go to Daniel. He's going to present and showcase the dashboard.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time today. So I'm Daniel, and I'm now going to spend about half an hour taking you through our latest dashboard, our Qualtrics CX dashboard design. So I've been working in dashboards for about 8 years from Power BI, and then more recently within Qualtrics. And this dashboard design's really come about from iterations and iterations of tailoring and tweaking it when more functionality becomes available in the platform. We've received some certain feedback. We've sort of learned something new along the way, which allows us to present that data in a more meaningful way. So hopefully the dashboard I share with you is going to be one which you find really valuable, one which you can take away and apply to your own surveys and your own dashboards in Qualtrics as well. So just to set a bit of a scene quickly, the dashboard is based off a customer satisfaction survey. So we're looking at a CSAT question at the top: how satisfied are you with the latest interaction? We then follow that up with a free text question around what was the reason for your score. And we go into a little bit of text IQ, and we can start to take advantage of Qualtrics text IQ features. We then have some key drivers around how much do you agree with the following, such as communication, responsiveness, efficiency. And then at the end, we have the Net Promoter Score as well. So I'll just show you the dashboard now. And we've got a few pages within this dashboard to work through, but the first page we land on is a bit of a landing page and a how-to guide. It really gives us the opportunity to advertise and show off what that voice of customer program is and what it's all about. So within this page, we sort of would encourage you to have a bit of a description around the purpose of the dashboard, the purpose of the voice of customer program, and really what the main aim of collecting all of this data and analyzing this data is. We also want to really encourage engagement and encourage Qualtrics users to come in and use the dashboard. One way we found that useful through the past is by starting to add in external links and turn it into a bit of a repository or a one-stop shop for you to come into. So don't just look at a landing page and think we can have some text and maybe a bit of a how-to guide, but why not start adding in some useful links to external sites like your SharePoint site, where you may have some more documentation relevant to the voice of customer program, or a Confluence page where, again, you could link out to these external sites. It gives the user that reason to come into the dashboard in the first place. And when they're in here, you can then encourage that use and encourage that interest into what the latest survey results are showing. Another way to encourage the engagement in the dashboard is when you come to the video tutorials, why not do a video tutorial? So you don't actually have to have text and images. Why not add a video into maybe your Google Drive, a private YouTube account, and then link the video in here to encourage and make it a little bit more interesting for the end user to come into. So up at the top, we've got landing page, then a little bit of information about the Voice of Customer program with useful links, external links, video links, links within to other dashboard pages. So there's lots of options you have available. As we scroll down, we then tend to go into a little bit of the methodology around what we're capturing within that survey. So in this example, we're then going into a little bit more detail about what the Net Promoter Score is, what the customer satisfaction score is, and how we've calculated that score, and a little bit about the text IQ, because the users may not know what text IQ is or how it's working, what it's capturing. So it just gives you the opportunity to describe and present that information here. Scrolling down a little bit more, we then go into that how-to guide page. So what are page filters and how we can apply page filters, and then a little bit around exporting data as well. How to set up an email to go out as a PDF with a dashboard in, or how do we export this chart as a Excel or CSV file? We can start to put the information in here. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the first page now. And the first page here is an executive summary. So we're looking at the audience being a C-suite, executives. We're looking for probably very busy people. They want to get a quick idea of the metrics and the key metrics across the top. So at the top of your dashboard, or sort of the top area, you always want to have your KPIs, your key performance indicators identified through the survey. And here we can see we've got the Net Promoter Score, we've got the customer satisfaction, and then we've got some text IQ data available. What's interesting is we're trying to keep consistency between all of the pages as well. So if we come back to that how-to landing page and you come to the methodology, you can see the Net Promoter Score, the customer satisfaction, the text IQ. We've got those three pillars. We're carrying forward that design, that consistency between the pages into the executive summary and the future pages onwards as well. So before I go any more into the KPIs and the other charts down the page, I just want to draw your attention to the filters along the top of the page. Make sure the terminology for these filters from your operational or embedded data is meaningful and makes sense to the end user. Don't just import something which has come through your data warehouse, which has a not so clear name. So you can tailor these and make it really clear for that end user. I like to sort of group them and order them in kind of priority or areas of interest first as well. And generally, I would have a survey response date, which is the end date at the back here. So going into these actual charts and widgets, and how can we enhance these charts and widgets to sort of maximize the value and the insights they're showing? So key metrics at the top, we've got the KPIs. We like to show these in a gauge chart. And it's also good to add in a bit of a comparison. So we can see whether these KPIs have been up or down from the previous quarter. Adds a little bit more insight into what we're looking at here. With the customer satisfaction, we like to use the top two scoring method as well. So that's on the 5-point scale from very satisfied to very dissatisfied. We can then say the top two answers, satisfied and very satisfied, 59% are satisfied. It makes it a lot easier to talk to and to engage in conversation than having an average score. For that lift conversation people have when they're talking in the office and walking around the office, this is a much easier way we found for engagement outside and for that talking around what the dashboard is representing. So just coming down, we then start to go into a bit of a distribution so you can get a little bit more information. What you'll notice, the more we scroll down the page, the more information we go into. So we can then see what answer options and what the answer distribution is between these KPIs. Scrolling down again, we can then start to look at the monthly trends. So now we're able to have a look at some time trends, and we have quarterly along the top here. Well, now we can go into the monthly trends with a little bit more information as we scroll down. It's always valuable to add the statistically significance rating in. It will help identify areas of a high score and areas of a low score. So here we can see that in September, there's a statistically significant dip in the Net Promoter Score, which came through. These charts are all interactive as well to encourage that engagement. So if I click on the September month here, I can see that the page filter has been applied and all of the data is going to update. And as we scroll down the page, we can then actually start to break down and go into segments of what that data is. And you can actually see there's been a bit of a dip here from Daniel Moon as the regional manager with that Net Promoter Score. I'll just change this back to all time again, just to allow me to continue talking around the charts. So we're then still talking about that executive summary, C-suite audience. When we start to break the data down, we don't want to go into too much information. We want to keep it quite high level still. So I'd encourage you to have 2 or 3 breakdowns where you can start to analyze the KPIs, still talking about the key performance indicators along the top. So what could be important to the execs? Here we've got regional manager and then state. And you can sort of see how they're tracking, again, with the statistically significant scoring applied. With the color scheme, we've obviously sort of tried to make that sort of unique, but here, the orange, we've just toned the color down. So with your color palette, if you run out of colors, don't be scared just to tone it down a little bit and make it a little bit more transparent with your charts. It's another way to get a set of colors to be applied. Scrolling down again, we're going into more and more detail, and now we get to the free text analysis. So this is taking that CSAT question and then what was the reason for your score? What we've done here is apply the text IQ, and we've grouped this into themes and topics. I like to put the 2 together here. I'll talk about the one on the right first. So this is the parent topics. And the reason I particularly like this chart is because it gives the user the opportunity to actually click into the parent topic and then see the topics within that parent topic. So they can start to get an understanding of what's being categorized under human-related skills or what's being categorized under technology. And you can start to see here, okay, it's problem-solving, communication skills. On the left, this is where we start to look at those action items and what valuable areas of attention and focus we can start to look at. So with the customer satisfaction topic analysis, we've applied a relative importance of a weighting score to each of the topics captured from that question. So we can see that core wait time has a 23% weighting compared to the other topics within this table against the customer satisfaction. And you can actually see that, although it's only 15, but they've all come in very negative. So it's having a big impact on that customer satisfaction score. Scrolling down again, it's also good to see, okay, from the dissatisfied customers, what are they talking about? What are they mentioning? And then in reverse, those satisfied customers, what are they talking about? What are they mentioning? So we can see here dissatisfied customers, there's poor connection, core wait time, multiple transfers, sort of suggesting there's a technology issue which is causing a dissatisfaction. And then within satisfied customers, we can actually see it's more of those human-related skills, so friendliness and efficiency and problem solving, which is contributing to a satisfied score. You'll never get the full value of actually reading the comment as well. So you'll go so far, and the idea is to try and get to those valuable comments and topics. So I always do encourage you to actually include the free written text. And then the idea is sort of that you can use filters to get through to those areas of interest. So we can look at what's happened with the poor connection by clicking on the filter, interactive, and then we can actually see what they've been saying around why a poor connection is being captured within these topics. So the connection was poor, could hardly hear the other person has come through. And then you can do that in reverse with the positive side as well. So continuing to scroll down, we're now moving out of sort of the the KPIs, I guess, and the free text reason with the correlations there. And we're starting to look at the key performance attributes. These are the questions around how much do you agree with the following statements. Here we've got 6 options we've chosen between professionalism, clear communication, knowledgeable, helpful, friendly, and responsive. And we're following the same top 2 scoring pattern where we can say on the agreement scale from strongly disagree through to strongly agree, 75% agree with knowledgeable being a key performance attribute from the staff. And we can split this out between the 6, as you can see. And then we've also used some color traffic light coding to add in here. You may want to change these depending on what your business sees as a poor score, a medium score, and a good score. But again, using the traffic lights helps the user to identify and relate the colors to what's happening. Red generally seen as anger, negative. Green seems sort of go positive. So it's a good color scheme to use. And then going down again, you can start to see those answer distributions, which is similar to how we had it up at the top. So we can get that other bit of detail coming in there. Now, one of my favorite charts, which we've got coming up next, is the key driver analysis. So just scrolling down, I'll get to a point where you can see this. Now, there is quite a bit going on here, and I'll explain the chart in a minute. But because there's quite a bit going on, we would encourage you to use a bit of text around the chart to describe what the user is looking at. Just give them some prompts around which of these 4 quadrants is relating to what. So we've got a little bit of information here about how to read the chart, what a strong correlation is. And then we've sort of split it up into the 4 quadrants, which is matching those 4 quadrants you can see on the chart around what that represents. So what this chart's doing is correlating the key drivers you saw up here around these professional through to responsive. And we're correlating that against the customer satisfaction score. And that's correlated on the y-axis in a importance marker, it's called. This is a score from 0 through to 1. The closer the correlation is, the closer the score is to 1, the stronger the correlation. So a correlation of 1 is a very, very strong correlation. Correlation of 0 is very, very weak. So it helps give us an indication of how important that key driver is to the customer satisfaction. On the x-axis, we have the performance. So the performance is the individual score of that key driver. What allows us to do is to split this into 4 quadrants, and we can say anything in the upper right is an area to promote. It's something which is performing well in relation to the other key drivers, and it has a stronger correlation than the other key drivers as well. Now, you may look at this and think, but your correlation is quite low. I'll just remind, this is all dummy data we've added, so it's not real data. I do generally find with dummy data, it seems to come in lower, and then as soon as we go live, the correlations pop straight back up to sort of 0.6, 0.5. So just bear that in mind. I think that's why we're seeing a lower correlation here. So that upper right, area to promote, strongly correlated and performing well. Keep doing what you're doing there. The action items come from the other end. So this is the primary fix, we like to call it. It's something which has a strong correlation as well with the customer satisfaction with our KPI, but it's lacking in performance compared to the other key drivers. So it's an area we can sort of focus our attention and get a good output in regards to customer satisfaction by focusing and improving and shifting these key drivers across to having a stronger performance and increasing their performance there. Shows us where we're going to get value for spending our time and resources. Just below the 2 lower quadrants, we have a secondary fix on the bottom left, something which isn't performing as well, but it's also sort of hasn't got such a strong correlation. Should still be looked at, but we like to call this a secondary fix. And then on the bottom right, we've got a cause to celebrate, something which is performing well, but again, isn't as strongly correlated. So you really get some nice action items and areas to focus from this chart. So this is everything we have in the executive summary page. The next page we're going to now is the regional manager page. So we're looking at sort of one tier down, if you like now. You'll see a lot of consistencies between the page design, but there's little tweaks to adapt to that user who may be looking at this. So our regional manager in this situation is Balaji. So we can apply a filter with Balaji. We can fix that filter on. So only Balaji would see Balaji data, or Balaji data and a roll-up of company data. And then scrolling down the page, you can see again, we've got the KPIs across here. But instead of just having quarterly previous quarter as one of the comparisons, we've also added in the company score. So it's important for the regional manager to see where they are performing in the company, whether they're up or down. And we can apply that to each of those KPI charts across the top. Following that similar pattern, we then move into the monthly trends. And again, with these monthly trends, looking at the middle chart we have here, we can see we can track the CSAT of the regional manager, which is the orange line. And then we can actually add in, using custom metrics, the company CSAT as well. So we can see how that regional manager is tracking against the company score. And we can both see they're tracking up, but Balaji here is still keeping the sort of the distance above as he's tracking up well. Why not add in a company target as well and have a fixed line in there? So here we've marked a solid black line. I've called the labeling 70%, trying to include as much information in the labels as you can. And we can sort of see, okay, are we tracking up to the company target? Is Balaji above the company target? And here we can see in October, Balaji's gone above the company target and the company is just a little bit below. So that's sort of where they're trying to get to. So it's adding a little bit more relevant information into these charts. Now, looking at the key data breakdown, whereas with the executive summary page, we were looking at regional manager and then state. Here we're thinking, okay, what data breakdown is going to be important and relevant to the regional manager? So here we've broken it down by manager, so sort of a tier down again, if you like, new customer, customer tier, just to sort of demonstrate, you'll have to discuss with the business and internally what's going to be the key breakdowns for you, but we're tweaking it to who that audience member is. Going into the free text analysis again, so they're very similar to the charts we've discussed, where you can get the relative importance of the weighting of the topics being analyzed within the table. Now, another area I really like, and it's a bit of a new feature within Qualtrics, is within the text IQ, you should now see a filter called Actionability. And what this allows us to do is to apply a filter to the free text answers. Here we've got a filter which pulls out suggestions. So it's going to analyze the comments and find any comment which is suggesting something. So here in this example, can I suggest the opening hours are extended on the weekend? So Qualtrics has been able to identify that comment through an actionability filter. And from there, there is an option to choose suggestions. Really useful at looking through that data. What are your customers saying? What suggestions are they giving us? You can pretty much filter that directly through now using the text IQ. On the right, another useful filter which comes through there is actions. So actionability, actionable comments which have come through. So it could be a comment which says, give me a call back immediately, or my payment never went through, I need to speak to somebody right now. So it's something which might require an immediate follow-up. It's helping us to identify and sift through the comments quickly to find actionable items, which is exactly what we're looking to do with these dashboards. So although this probably might be useful at an executive level, we've put this in at the regional manager level because it's more likely to have an action taken upon them and a follow-up and a result from seeing these comments. Now, the other area which is really good, so similar to how we've looked at the key driver analysis, where we had those 6 key drivers around knowledge, responsiveness, communication, you can actually use a focus area chart. So we're tailoring this towards the regional manager, where we can identify what their strengths are and what their areas of opportunity are. So here we can see where helpfulness has been identified as a strength. The score is 62 and the company's average is 62. Clear communication has been identified as a strength. The regional manager Balaji score is 88 and the company's average is 75. Now, on the opposite to that, we can look at identifying opportunities. So here we can see actually there's been an opportunity to increase knowledge, be more friendly, and increase professionalism. You see the scores slightly below the company score here, and we can see the impact with the correlation coming through. And we can link this to action plans. So again, it's giving them the reason to go into the dashboard, look at where we can improve, and then actually set some targets and set some actions from that. So if I click on improve here, we can actually start to build out an action plan. So increase knowledge. Let's say the starting metric 69, which is our current score. Let's say I want to get this up to 75, which is the company's average score at the moment. We can set that target and go and create the action plan, and we'll come to action plans later on in this presentation. So from here, you can start to build out, how am I going to improve this customer satisfaction? Really, really powerful widget, this one. Again, just demonstrating some new ways to present the data. We're still looking at the key drivers. Now, from that key driver analysis chart in the executive summary, we were able to identify which drivers were most strongly correlated with that customer satisfaction score. And we've pulled that knowledge through into the regional manager score. So we can see responsiveness, friendly, and helpful are the strongest correlated. Their importance score is the highest. This should be an area of focus for the business. This is where we're going to get the biggest impact out of focusing. So when we've come to the regional managers and we're breaking this data down by store or by manager, we've listed this in that same order. So now we can start to look at the data using some conditional formatting and think, friendly, manager A, manager C, there seems to be something going on there. That's an area we can look at to break and go into some more investigations, what could be happening there. So we've got the most important on the left, across to the least on the right. Again, all these tables are interactive, so we can click on this and it can apply the filter to the page, and it can allow us to probably have another page dedicated to that where we jump in and go into more information, dissect that data further. I'll just apply this filter back. So scrolling down more, we're going into more and more information. We're now looking at what the satisfied customers are saying. So very similar to the executive board, but you get that breakdown and you can start to see what the full value, you always get the full value of reading the full comments, but it's just allowing us to filter and pull out the valuable comments from the data set. And then again with the dissatisfied customers as well. So using widget filters, we can filter out just to show the dissatisfied customers. And then finally on this page, to get the full information across, I do like to have at the very end of these pages a table which has the full survey response in. So we've pulled through and the columns having some valuable identifiable information. But if you actually click on this row, it will open up in a new window and you'll be able to see all of the data attached to that response and then the survey response. You can design how this looks. Generally, I find having 2 columns works well. Operational embed data on one side, survey response on the other, just to separate it out to avoid that scrolling going on too much. Okay, because we're trying to encourage this dashboard to be that one-stop shop, that powerful resource the user's going to come into, we've also added in a ticket follow-up page, a ticket reporting page. The main idea I wanted to show this page off wasn't so much for how to create a ticket reporting page, but it's actually for the fact that we can link tickets to the dashboard. So you could encourage your users, if you had the Qualtrics ticket set up, to actually come in here to action and see the latest tickets which belong to you, which you can then go through and action accordingly. So we can use filters to display that. Just on a very quick note then, general speaking, we would have ticket resolution, a bit of time metrics, followed by the follow-up questions, followed by the root causes. But the real point here is around making it interactive, making it that one-stop shop. And then we get to the action planning page. Now the action planning's moved into the new location in the upper right, but that doesn't mean we can't have a dedicated action planning page. You could have some reasoning around what you're looking to achieve within the quarter or within the year, what the company targets are, maybe some videos engaging and encouraging sort of improving and setting targets and getting those valuable outcomes, and then actually making it a little bit more accessible by using an image to link in the action plan link. So here I've just linked the action plan in there, and you can come in and see the action plans which have been allocated. And this increased knowledge one, as you can see the date, is what we added in just now. There's our target metric of 75, and we can start to add in new actions to get to that target, as well as adding in some ownership and due dates. So another area I'll sort of touch on, and just to sort of let you know what we can do here, so I've just come back to the executive summary slide. Really valuable. You need to have a Qualtrics license to come into this dashboard and to navigate and to use the page filters and to explore them here. If you don't, you do have options available. So you can export the dashboard, and then you can actually email the dashboard from here as well. So there's nothing stopping you from using an external email address, adding in maybe to your manager, to somebody of interest who wants to see that. And what's valuable is you can have a recurring email here. So you could say every Monday at 7 a.m., I want a PDF export of this latest dashboard to go to my manager, because they don't have a Qualtrics account. Again, it's going to encourage that engagement, encourage that conversation and talk around it. When we go to edit the PDF, you can give it a file name, you can adjust how it looks, give it the margins, and you can sort of make sure it's coming through clear and neat for the user there. So that recurring email is a really powerful tool to set up. And once you've set it up, you can kind of leave it and don't have to worry about it as much. Going into the settings as well, I'll just go through a few other areas here. One area I didn't mention is the benchmark editor. So you do have access to Qualtrics benchmarks. There may be a benchmark from a data source which is relevant to your survey, which you'll want to import. So you can have a look at what type of data sets we have available. Okay, there's a contact center here, and we can start to look at what sort of metrics we're going to pull through, and you can then apply that benchmark to your data. We haven't used it here, but how that would look is very similar to how we have that previous quarter data here, but we could have a standing benchmark data to see how the company is performing against Qualtrics' benchmarks. And then going back into the settings for you, the other areas of interest are these notifications. So within the notification section, you can set up notifications to be notified if there's maybe been a drop in responses or there's been a drop in customer satisfaction. And you can start to build out your notification and the notification conditions from here, and when you should be notified. It's another good way to take advantage of it. It's available. We don't see clients using it that often, so sort of like to advertise it out here. And it's a good way of increasing that engagement and awareness of the dashboard, of the survey which is up and running, and the data you're collecting. And finally there, I'll just touch on the theme. So you will notice it's important to make sure the branding and the appearance of the dashboard is matching your company colors. So here we've got the orange banner on the top. You'll see a lot of the charts using that ActXM orange, and we're using our primary and secondary colors where we can. In the settings, you are able to set this up in the themes. In the themes down here. And you can start to see, okay, we want the banner color, and you can put in a color palette, and you can start to play around a little bit with the appearance and the styling of that. So it's just important to make sure you use appropriate colors as well. Tie it in as closely as you can to the brand. As I mentioned earlier, red's generally more negative, green's more positive, and make sure that's related to the sentiment of what the question's asking as well. So that was everything I wanted to show you today around the dashboard and the dashboard design we've built out. I hope you find this useful. There's lots of ideas you can take from this and incorporate into your own dashboards. And hopefully there's something new you've learned here of how we can make actionable, insightful dashboards. I'll just go to some questions now. And we did get a few questions come through. The first one is around that suggestions and actionability within the text IQ. So I think it was about 6 months ago that became available. And I'll just go into the editing mode here. And if I scroll down to the suggestions option, we'll just go in and edit this dashboard. What I've done is apply a filter down here. And then if you search, you will see the actionability filter, which is related to the text IQ data which comes through. And if you click on this, you can actually see what filters are available. So you get 4 available with this actionability. You get suggestions, response needed, other, and there's also an NA. So the 2 valuable ones here are really that suggestions and that response needed, which I've displayed in 2 columns side by side. Okay, just looking at the other questions coming through. We've got a key driver widgets question. How do you set up the thresholds for quarter performance? So I'll just go through to that key driver. I will just explain a little bit of how we've set this key driver chart up. So going through and looking at the editing option there, I'll just wait for it to load. I do generally find making it dynamic with a threshold type as it takes an advantage. It just sort of closes it all up and sort of moves the quadrant around into more of a valuable area. You can have static where you would have certain thresholds. Generally, I think just explaining what it means and how you can interpret the chart in some text around the key driver works, and then having sort of a dynamic threshold works quite well. The other options we've got here is to scale the range automatically. So you can see if we took this off, it's a bit hard to read, it's not very clear. Again, just adding this just sort of brings it all a bit closer together and easier to read. The other one we haven't used is to scale data points by sample size. And now all of these are the same size, the same sample size, but if you had multiple data sources coming in, the size of the dot resembles how many responses have been captured. So that is significant as well. So that can be useful when you're analyzing the data there. Okay, I'll just close that down. There isn't a template already set up, unfortunately. So you do have a bit of a template, I think, for the ticketing, but it doesn't always work, to be honest with you. This template with the dashboard you can see has been developed, and that's sort of, as I said at the start, sort of through iterations and iterations through the years. I'll sort of use this video and sort of recommend following the template as you can here. This works well and we receive good feedback from the clients there. But you would have to go through and set up each of the widgets. Another question around exporting. So there's a question there around the emailing the dashboard. And as we mentioned, you can schedule emails to go out. You can also download the dashboard if you wish to do so. And you do have a few file types available. So you can go as a PDF or a JPEG. Came in a little while ago, but now you can have a PowerPoint and a Word document as well as CSV, TSV, and Excel. Honestly, I find the PDF the cleanest and a way to get most charts in an area, and which sort of resembles the screen you're looking at now, really, with that layout. So I would recommend you to play around with the PDF version first before you look at the other ones. A question around the text IQ again with the relative importance and how do we set this up? So I'll just go back into edit mode. A lot of it is Qualtrics being clever and doing it for you. So I'll just go into the edit of the chart, what you can see here. And what we've got, I'll just try and get this to load properly. Let me try another one for you here. It is an option available within the widget. I might just let it fully load before I try and get that to work. So I'll come in here and go to edit. And here we can see that there's some columns and we can add in a new column. So when you initially add this, the relative importance isn't there. So generally, I'll try and clean it up and delete a few things off if I don't think it's relevant. I'll then click and add a new column. The column type I'm choosing here is the relative importance column type. And then the variable is what we're correlating that with. And then you can add in a weighting from here as well. And then that will resemble the bars and the weighting you can see here. Okay, I think we're just about there looking at the questions coming through. Yeah, I think probably in the stage to start to wrap up a bit now. This video webinar is recorded, so you will be able to get access to it, and we will distribute that out to you shortly following this. But hope this has been informative and been valuable for you, and you've really taken something away which you can use within your business. Thank you for listening.